Deep understanding of Judaism and Zionism with Israel SHAHAK in his book Jewish History, Jewish Religion, The Weight of 3,000 Years. A closed utopia? Until such attitudes are widely adopted, the actual danger of Israeli policies based on Jewish ideology remains greater than the danger of policies based on purely strategic considerations. The difference between the two kinds of policies was well expressed by Hugh Trevor Roper in his essay Sir Thomas More and Utopia, in which he termed them Platonic and Machiavellian. Quote, Machiavelli at least apologized for the methods which he thought necessary in politics. He regretted the necessity of force and fraud and did not call them by any other name. But Plato and More sanctified them, provided that they were used to sustain their own utopian republics. End of quote. In a similar way, true believers in that utopia called the Jewish state, which will strive to achieve the biblical borders, are more dangerous than the grand strategists of Gazit's type, because their policies are being sanctified either by the use of religion or worse, by the use of secularized religious principles which retain absolute validity. While Gazit at least sees a need to argue that the Israeli diktat benefits the Arab regimes, Ben-Gurion did not pretend that the re-establishment of the kingdom of David and Solomon will benefit anybody except the Jewish state. Using the concepts of Platonism to analyze Israeli policies based on Jewish ideology should not seem strange. It was noticed by several scholars, of whom the most important was Moses Hadass, who claimed that the foundations of classical Judaism, that is, of Judaism as it was established by Talmudic sages, are based on Platonic influences and especially on the image of Sparta as it appears in Plato. According to Hadass, a crucial feature of the Platonic political system adopted by Judaism as early as the Maccabean period, 142 to 63 BC, was that every phase of human conduct be subjected to religious sanctions, which are in fact to be manipulated by the ruler. There can be no better definition of classical Judaism and of the ways in which the rabbis manipulated it than this Platonic definition. In particular, Hadass claims that Judaism adopted what Plato himself summarized as the objectives of his program in the following well-known passage. Quote, the principal thing is that no one, man or woman, should ever be without an officer set over him, and that none should get the mental habit of taking any step, whether in earnest or in jest, on his individual responsibility. In peace as in war, he must live always with his eyes on his superior officer. In a word, we must train the mind not even to consider acting as an individual or know how to do it. Laws, number 942 AB. End of quote. In the word rabbi is substituted, if the word rabbi is substituted for an officer, we will have a perfect image of classical Judaism. The latter is still deeply influencing Israeli Jewish society and determining to a large extent the Israeli policies. It was the above quoted passage which was chosen by Karl Popper in The Open Society and Its Enemies as describing the essence of a closed society. Historical Judaism and its two successors, Jewish Orthodoxy and Zionism, are both sworn enemies of the concept of the open society as applied to Israel. A Jewish state, whether based on its present Jewish ideology or, if it becomes even more Jewish in character than it is now, on the principles of Jewish orthodoxy, can't ever contain an open society. There are two choices which face Israeli Jewish society. It can become a fully closed and warlike ghetto, a Jewish Sparta, supported by the labor of Arab helots, kept in existence by its influence on the US political establishment and by threats to use its nuclear power, or it can try to become an open society. The second choice is dependent on a honest examination of its Jewish past, on the admission that Jewish chauvinism and exclusivism exist, and on a honest examination of the attitudes of Judaism toward the non-Jews.